Hi again. In the previous episodes on necklocks, we firstly had a look at the different types. The air choke, the blood strangle, and the various types of spine lock, which are actually torquing the spine just like you would any of the limb joints. In the second episode, we looked in detail at the blood strangle, primarily Hadaka Shime, the rear naked strangle, and how it's used. Basically, how it has been applied for years and years and years, mainly in judo. In this third video, we're going to look at the combative application of the rear naked strangle. In sport, the strangle is usually used in groundwork. It's the guy gets a position of advantage to apply the strangle. There are strangles that are done from the front, cross strangles using the jacket lapels and things like that, but specifically the rear naked, you have to get behind the guy in some way, control him, and that's what it's mainly used for. In use by police and security, it's mainly been an intervention technique where someone is fighting or is violent in some way. You come up behind them and you throw the rear naked on and use it to control or subdue the guy. In what we're going to be doing in this third one is examining a technique that allows you to use the strangle as a main preemptive technique in a confrontation, whether you are working from the police field interview position or the classic doorman's fence position. You can apply the technique. So it's no longer you no longer have to attack from the rear. This is face to face. I was shown this technique in the 1990s, the early 1990s, by Nick Hughes. Now, Nick, who is from Australia, had come on our Bodyguard course in the 80s, and at the time he was serving in the French Foreign Legion, and in I think it was 1989, we worked together in Paris at the Paris Air Show doing security for one of the major aerospace companies there. Nick was still in the Legion then. When he finished his 5 years, he came to London and went on the circuit doing close protection, and he came up to Liverpool, and while he was up here we did a session in a dojo in Bootle, just a couple of the guys from my circle, and one of the techniques he taught was what we're going to be doing now. Nick had previously worked in Australia on the doors of hotels and bars, working for a chap called Bobby Jones, who ran most of the doors in the Melbourne area. Bobby Jones also ran the Zendo Kai karate organization, which was based on Goju. And Gary Spires was one of his guys, both in the dojo and also working for him on the doors. So he was the previous generation to Nick, and he was something of a legend to those guys. So what Nick, one of the things that they did in the Zendo Kai was have a session, a private session or a restricted session only for the guys who worked on security and worked on the doors, and they would deconstruct the Goju techniques and apply them for door work. And this was quite an interesting evolution, and Nick showed me some of the stuff that they developed. Nick at 6'8" was a formidable fighter, combining high skill, a natural combat brain, and a wealth of street experience. So we were really glad to learn from him on this session. So the technique he taught is the spin to the necklock, and we'll now examine it in detail. Okay, so the spin to choke in detail. You can spin either way, but if he's already got one foot or one arm forward, it's easiest to take that as the pull. So when I pull, I'm going to go for his upper arm. I'm not going to go for the clothing. It's a big meat hook. And at the same time, it's going to be push on the opposite. So you want the width to give you the leverage. So it's that. This arm then is in position to do the actual necklock. Okay? And as I do that, I'm taking his balance. I've already got his balance, and then I'm wrapped up into the figure four. Okay? So the whole thing is quite easy to do. If you get any resistance, you just do it the other way. Just take it the other way. Okay? And another thing is sometimes if in a security type of environment, you can kind of pre-test how he's going to react. I touch, listen mate, you know, touch first. If he pulls away, you know how he's going to react. If he allows you to do it, then jobs are good. Now, at that session where Nick came up and taught a few of us, one of the chaps on it was Tony Rimmer, who had trained with us in Goju, also very heavily into boxing, and later ran the really the main door security firm, or the biggest and most prominent door security firm in the Merseyside area, where he had many venues, some with up to 25 door crew working, and he spread the necklock technique so that eventually it was being really widely used on those doors many times a week over the years. I used it many times and only really can remember two failures. One was a kid who I would say wasn't really even old enough to be in the club, and for some reason he was being asked to leave. He resisted. I did the spin, got him in a necklock, but I stood on a bottle and we both ended up on the floor, and he was wriggling like an eel. Anyway, two of my colleagues grabbed an arm each and got him to his feet, and we each had hold of a part of him, the arms. I think I still had him by the neck, and both of the guys who had his arms were black belts in one of the either judo or jiu-jitsu. And he got out, he got free, he wriggled free somehow. Still to this day when we meet him, we laugh about it because it was amazing. So the neck lock didn't really fail because it was never on. But there was another occasion where I did the technique on a guy, put it on, and nothing was happening. And my colleague Paul was facing us both, could see that it wasn't working, and he said, "Yeah, give him to me." I passed him over, he put it on him, and even though his neck started creaking and he lost control of his bowels, he never went to kip. So they're the two that in actual application I can remember. But I was on a course in the United States, and we were learning a variation called unilateral neck restraint, where you just apply to one side, you go under the arms, under one arm across the neck, and it's a one-sided one. It's really only probably half as effective, but it's an option if you're approaching from the side. And the chap I paired up with as we're doing it, he said, "By the way, this doesn't work on me." He said, "Neck locks don't work on me." I went, "Oh, okay." I wasn't intending to put him asleep anyway. But as we're putting it on, the instructor came around and he said the same to him. And the instructor said, "Oh, is it? Let me try." And he put it on him, and the guy didn't go asleep. He was right. And there are a percentage of people, no doubt, who don't feel the effects, just like there's people who don't feel the effects of pain compliance. I remember a guy on a course, and they were doing a Combatives, pressure points on the back of the hand to open a grip, and he was just sort of looking as literally a hole was being drilled through his hand, and he had all scars and burns and everything where he'd put his hand on something hot and not even noticed. He's one of that percentage that is just like invulnerable to pain. Another look at the use of the strangle. Cy James, who was one of the early members of the Gutterfighters, I remember chatting to him over a cup of tea, and he reminisced about in the early days. He said, "I was always picking your brains about techniques, and particularly he was interested in the strangle." And he said, "I couldn't believe that you couldn't remember how many times you'd used it and the circumstances each time." He said, "I was trying to get the details and it was just, lost in the mists of time." He said, "Until I started working the doors, and by the time we were having this brew, we'd been on doors for about a year." And he said, "I have done it to so many people." He said, "I can't remember." He said, "That's just a year." He said, we use it so many times. And that's the thing, you just get the reps throughout your career, and it just becomes a tool. Okay, just to sum up, the spin to the necklock is a really effective technique. It's been used literally thousands of times in Liverpool alone. And it's all due to the influence of one guy, Nick Hughes. Nick is one of the most authentic teachers of self-protection on the planet, and he currently is resident in the United States, so any American viewers are urged to attend one of his classes. Failing that, his book is required reading. I'll put links to where you can get hold of Nick and his book. In the next video in this series, we will cover defense against being choked.